Malungil tutaw, pia kadamaral ngal tanga tarakuk tarasil, siluk martial program rigi tara DOTAUT. Malmere nga sule la kure kama ohanal mal prepare ready for us. Kami ulpe klado labang kamam el al tutaw, el al sil sa kimalo nga suli ulguk oil tune in el mertial DOTAUT Tekoi Ureor. Doing business in Palau. El ako mo mes kamame el alsil sa nga tokubet sul okya kamam linya takal other belau ndinga nga Ureor lobangel akmal el el other belau mobangel a Dr. Stevenson Cuarte el niya dire kal senator el al 11th olbira kalulaw nga chiropractor mong loda kal sabela merli aluban toktang lobangel anding ngiyam le sabel may mangya kukbo ay sulwaseng wangraw rere sel clinic sel vessel clinic maktingul mertiang ortografia maldi oywitial imol bata sel morang kalatral kira lang kalatral nga par kita maamula. Okay, so Barry, I'm going to just read a small Bible verse that points to perhaps to you today. It's found in John chapter 6 verse 35. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. Tiap malungil badas lang ay Jesus sa mulkol wasengi aplawang raklangar. Ngel moringi at yakapol sangreng. Ngelo mararingi at yakapol meetarmul. Mang tingul mersegi te ko PM open a platform mergite. Ito mo ulra interview.
Tutaw, thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Manvel.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So we'll take this opportunity and let you take over the show. Tell us who you are and what you do here. And
Okay. My name is Dr. Barry Manvel. I'm originally from New Jersey. I was a medical surgical nurse for 3 years in New Jersey. Worked with a lot of back patients. I had to handle the back patients, so I saw a lot of surgery with backs. Then I worked for the Center of Disease Control in Mississippi, running a health department. I was an epidemiologist for 2 years. And then I went to Johns Hopkins University, and I graduated from Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa. That's the original school for chiropractic. And so is Johns Hopkins was the first university in America. So graduated from Palmer, and then I practiced in the Philippines in Manila for a year back in '92. Then I practiced in Saudi Arabia for 6 months in '94. And now I've moved here. I've been in Napa, California for the last 23 years. And moved here in September. And after 6 months, finally got approved. And now I'm working on Dr. Cuate's clinic.
as a chiropractor,
Yes.
can you explain to us and to our audience what is a chiropractor and what does he do
Right.
specifically?
Well,
Good question.
what I do is I start from the ankle up. I find most people have an ankle sprain. And that ends up messing up the rest of their body because we only have 2 legs and we have to do a lot of dancing when you have a kind of a flat tire on one ankle. I'll go from there and then I go up the body and look at the hips. Then I'll go and check the spine and we adjust the spine. And people say, do you do massage? And when I adjust someone, it's not painful. So you have nothing to be scared of because I have a lot of patients coming in lately going, I'm really scared, but after I get done, they go, well, it didn't hurt at all. So there's no pain involved with adjusting. And
it's not massage. It's
Right.
chiropractic adjustment, right?
yeah, it's totally different than,
Working with bones or nerves?
yeah, I adjust the bones. So,
Okay.
so what I find, if bones are out of alignment, then I want to get them back in alignment. So for example, someone's twisted their knee. So I've asked patients, they've gone to a doctor, well, did they untwist it? And they go, no, they gave me pain pills. Well, I go, oh, well, I'm here to untwist your knee.
Oh.
If you twisted it, you need to untwist it. So I adjust a lot of knees if they're out of alignment. And Then I just go up the spine too. I also work on the hands, and I work with a lot of guitar players and massage therapists. I just had a massage from Rose at Penthouse, and very good massage. But I had to work on her hands and forearms because she's a hard worker with those, and they can get out of balance from working them too much.
So it's probably the same also for people who work in the taro pots or who use their hands also, and they bend to plant, farms.
Who carry a lot of heavy loads.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I see with people carrying stuff is that if I come here and I want to lift this up, the one thing I'm doing wrong is I'm looking down. So once I grab something and then I'm going to pick it up, I want to look up and then pick it up. When you're looking down, you're actually pulling on the spinal cord, and I can check any muscle in your body and it'll get weak because you're stressing the whole spinal cord when you're looking down. So if you have monitors, you want to make a habit of looking up, maybe raising your monitor, and then what we call tech neck, because everyone's looking down at their phone a lot, and that stresses the spinal cord too. So what I want to do is make sure people are looking up and hopefully raise their monitors. And if you're going to do stuff, maybe have your phone so you're not looking down all the time, or if you're doing work. I also find if people are at their stations a lot with the computers, they can I call it, they get like this, and if you end up going like this, that's your body telling you, I'm starting to lock up, because I call it the praying mantis posture. And the brain may be intrigued, but the body's going, why am I praying mantis? And if it keeps up, it'll lock it up. Next thing you know, you're real stiff, and you start losing your range of motion. So I'll tell people that if they're working and sitting and all of a sudden they feel like they're stiff, that's a good time just to get up and do a little walk to loosen up so you don't lock up. And so I work with that too, that I work with a lot of muscles, because I looked at a skeleton one time for like an hour and it never moved. So I found bones very boring, so muscles control the bones. So I do what they call applied kinesiology. And all I need is a strong muscle on someone, and I can figure out your whole body from that. I practiced in Saudi Arabia for 6 months. I don't speak Arabic, but just by having a strong muscle, I could figure out everything I wanted to do on that patient. And I also worked in Manila. I don't speak Tagalog. So again, all I need is a strong muscle, and then I can figure out everything about your body from there.
When you speak about spinal cord, Barry, I see you brought something. Can you explain a little,
Well, this is what I'd like to see the vertebrae look like, and what it is. If its bone gets out of alignment between the vertebrae, and they get out of alignment, the body will lock it up because it's worried about it getting worse. If it gets worse, it can actually affect the spinal cord. So when it gets out of alignment, it can affect the spinal nerves. Each spinal nerve here has 1 million nerves. So one vertebrae can affect 4 million nerves. And I'll joke with patients and I'll tell them, hey, when you get home, write down 4 million symptoms. So I have no idea what the nerve interference is going to create. There's 2 types of nerves. There's the sensory nerves that are bringing information in to the body, and then there's motor nerves that are going out. So some patients saying, oh, it's only numb. Well, numb is as bad as pain. It's just another part of the nerve. So it can be, numb can be cute, but eventually it can go into pain. Depends on what part of the nerve is. So if I have a pinched nerve in my neck, I may have my hand turned like this. And I'm looking at my hand going, why are you doing that? Well, that's the nerve that makes my hand do this. And I'm looking at it going, why are you doing that? Well, that's nerve interference. The next patient may have a similar problem, but her hand is numb. The next patient may say they don't get blood to it, so they keep dropping things. And then if it's real bad, then it can hit the pain, nerve, and that's just another nerve. The worst pain you can have is burning pain. That's actually hurting the nerve then if you have a burning pain. So what I want to do is make sure these joints are moving. What happens when the joint gets misaligned and locks up, the disc here in between the bones slowly dies. And that disc defines how big the holes are for the nerves. So this is what I'm trying to prevent here. Here's a case where now the disc is dying and the nerves are much smaller now coming out between the vertebrae because that disc is dying. The body will try to actually make a bony bridge between them to try to save the disc space so there's some nerves that can live. If that disc gets totally destroyed, that nerve is gone. And that person will have permanent damage. So I have some patients that their neck's degenerated. So I'm adjusting out of the 7 joints in their neck, I can only adjust 2 or 3, and I'll leave the other ones alone. Also with back surgery, like I said, I was a nurse with back surgery. So some people say I had back surgery, I can't go to chiropractic, and that's not true because I don't mess with the back surgery. That's permanent, whatever they've done. And let's say they fuse 3 vertebrae. Well, you got another 30 joints I can work on. So, and my best friend had cerebral palsy, and he was all in the wheelchair. And with him, I was just adjusting his neck. So, and that gave him a lot of relief too. So, and some people, and I also use a very gentle technique. I also recommend to see babies because we believe that when they pull a lot when the baby's born, that can cause problems in the upper neck. And we really believe that SIDS or crib death is actually the upper neck is involved, and it's putting pressure on the medulla oblongata, which is what tells you to breathe. So all of a sudden the baby forgets to breathe. So I've had patients in with, they monitor on their baby, and they're always paranoid going, can you hear the baby? Can you hear the baby? Once I get the baby in and check their spine, I can reassure the parents that, there's nothing going to happen, no surprises now, because I've taken any interference out in the upper neck. So children I like to see, because again, if you watch children when they learn to walk, they'll fall a lot on their butt, and that can throw the low back out. And especially in girls, that can cause scoliosis from having a trauma to the butt area that can set off a scoliosis in girls.
Scoliosis is when somebody starts going like this, like
that's
what
osteoporosis.
is scoliosis?
Scoliosis is if I look at the spine straight, it's curved. So the spine looking straight at you should be straight, but instead it's curving. So, and that puts a lot of tension in the body because you've got all this curvature and makes you tired real quick. And that's something we can help. Also with kids, I work on a valve here. It's called the ileocecal valve that separates the large and small intestines. And in children, if that valve is open, that can cause it to back up into the appendix and cause appendicitis. So I like to get kids in and check the valve so I can prevent them having an appendectomy. Because I had one and it wasn't fun back in '58, and when
So
they're using
how-
ether.
Like, I don't have any back pain or neck pain, but do I need to go see a chiropractor?
Well, how old are you now?
60 plus.
Okay, so I want you to drive your car for 60 plus years, and without getting a tune-up, okay? And I'll pick you up hitchhiking. So basically, it's just I'm tuning the body up. I want the body to move like God designed us. We're supposed to move a certain way.
Yeah.
And if your joints aren't all moving, for example, if I move my neck and I get noise, I know I've got a problem because some vertebrae aren't moving, and the vertebrae that can move are starting to move too much, and then I'll get the noise in my neck. And that tells me I need to be adjusted because all my 7 joints in my neck aren't moving. So I also find most people have the first vertebrae with the ribs is usually forward on people, and it creates a whole posture like this, which can also cause depression, and it puts pressure on your heart and lungs. After I adjust the T1, the first thoracic vertebrae, the heart gets 30% more blood, and the lungs increase 30%.
Yeah, open up.
And Andrew Weil causes it. He's a medical doctor who's Dr. Quate's knows and works with.
Yeah.
And he does alternate medicine. And he calls the T1 complex, he calls it the closed heart syndrome.
The closed heart syndrome.
Yeah, and with that, the patients get tired a lot because you're not getting good air in your lungs. And also, it's a depressing posture. It's very hard
the blood is not flowing well from the
Well,
heart?
no, it's pressure on the heart. It's just pressure on it.
Putting
So,
pressure on the heart.
A lot of these women now, they
Yeah.
watch a lot of these Korean shows and their small cell phone and they
Yeah.
our hands up like this almost all day, or we go to a funeral and they're playing games and sitting for
Yes.
4 hours at
Yeah.
a time,
Yeah.
just looking.
At their phone. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
we call that tech neck.
Technique.
Technique.
When you're looking down and you're just, And eventually, you can do it, and all of a sudden you'll turn, and all of a sudden, you're
Yeah.
paralyzed
Yeah.
and going, whoa. So a lot of my patients, when they hit 40, is when all of a sudden the body can no longer accommodate
Yeah.
the problems they're having, and they'll do something, all of a sudden, oh, it just happened. And it's actually, we want to prevent it. Whenever you have symptoms, you're having damage. So I don't want to wait till you have damage. My mother had a lovely brunch with my dad, and they were driving back, and my mother was quite the talker, and she hadn't talked in 10 minutes. And my dad looked at his watch and goes, my God, she must be dead. She hasn't said anything. And she had passed away. She died. And she had no symptoms. And so a lot of people, by the way, more than 50% of the people that find out they have a heart problem die. So I don't consider death very healthy. And so as chiropractors, we're not that concerned with symptoms, because it's kind of like if all the light bulbs went out in the room here, when I change all the light bulbs, probably I'd look at the fuse box. Well, we consider the spine the fuse box and the symptoms the light bulbs. So we're not going to chase the symptoms, because when I work on someone, they may come in with a right shoulder problem, and I'll adjust them. And then in a week or a month or so, they come back and they go, boy, my right shoulder is much better. Now my left shoulder is bugging me. And sometimes symptoms can change as I get rid of the nerve interference. So what I believe is that the body can heal itself. I just want to get rid of the interference, so the brain and body are talking. In the beginning, a lot of patients will go through a healing. And that's when the body will, I'll get rid of nerve interference, and all of a sudden the brain may find the lungs have a lot of stuff in it. So a lot of my patients will go through a healing in the beginning of care, where usually the body heals from the head down. So they'll get all this mucus in the head and cold, and then they'll go to the throat. So I hear people say, I had a head cold and went in my chest. No, it's actually part of the healing process. So it starts in the head, throat, and then lungs, and then it can go stomach and then intestines. You can get the diarrhea, and it's just your body cleaning house. And normally patients will get exhausted, because their body's doing a lot of work in the healing process. And they also won't eat a lot of garbage, because they'll find if they eat garbage at that point, the body go, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
They may actually vomit it, or get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it's the body healing, but it's a lot of work when the body heals. But once you get rid of all that luggage, you'll feel a lot better after you go through the healing.
So Barry, Uncle Barry had come to Palau for the first time in 2020. And so he had met a lot of people before he left, and he was, of course, a tourist, so he was just helping them. And so by this time when he came back, because COVID kind of delayed his return to Palau, he has learned a lot about what's really happening with the health of a lot of people in Palau. So you see a lot of overweight, a lot of, we are suffering from a lot of NCDs, non-communicable diseases, like diabetes, and then cancer. And then we also have a lot of, people that are just getting strokes, or even my own classmates who are 50 plus. Is there any relation to nerve and spine to any of this?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And
Like when people think they have arthritis.
right.
Stress, maybe a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you have misalignments in your spine and you're stressing the nerves, it's going to stress your body. So again, I may have a problem in my neck, and the nerve that makes my hand do this may be pinched. And I'm going, why is my hand doing that? Well, that's a pinched nerve that I can't control. The next patient may just have a numb hand with the similar problem. It all depends on what part of the nerve, because again, one of these nerves have 1 million nerves in it. So one vertebrae can affect 4 million nerves. So I have no idea what kind of symptoms those are going to be, but we're not that concerned with symptoms, because I'm going to go at the fuse box and just get rid of the nerve interference. And sometimes when I'm working on some, symptoms will change as the nerves heal. So with chiropractic, we're not that concerned with symptoms, because we'll find those will change. But even if someone doesn't have any symptoms, that, like I said, most people find out they have a heart problem, more than 50%, is that they drop dead. and that whether by the time they die, we can't help them. So I want to prevent that. The work I do, I can find a heart problem at like 30 or 40%. When they take x-rays for osteoporosis, which is bone loss, if they find that on an x-ray with osteoporosis, normally the bone has to have 50 to 60% bone loss before they can detect it on an x-ray. And by then you're in real trouble. Because sometimes with osteoporosis, these vertebrae can collapse. And then you're going to be in pain the rest of your life. There's nothing we can do for that. So we want to prevent that too. And by getting out of balance, that can help, that can hurt the bones too. So with this one here, you can see that it's starting to get a bony bridge around the disc, and it's trying to save the disc space so the nerve has some kind of hole to get out of there. So again, between these two, you can see the nerves here are much better, and that's a nice healthy disc. And that's what we want to do. I can get a patient like this in and start adjusting them, and that disc can come back. Again, remember,
It will grow back, or?
Yeah, it can.
Like relief, like find some relief.
But this cannot be replaced with any other thing.
Yeah.
The disc.
Well, what it is, if I, for example, if I bend to my left, I'm going to squeeze my disc here. This disc is a living thing. So when I squeeze the disc, it pushes out toxins and waste products. When I lean this way, now it's opening the joint, and it's going to create a vacuum to get nutrients into the disc. So when the bone gets out of alignment and it's not moving anymore, that disc will slowly die. And then it's going to start pinching the nerves more and more.
Exercise and stretching is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I like walking the best.
Yeah.
Walking.
Walking
Okay.
is the best.
Yeah, sometimes I see people run and they're kind of beating themselves up a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not
Walking
fluid.
and swimming are the
Yeah.
best.
Definitely, yes,
The
swimming's
two
good
best full body workout.
too.
Yeah, so we hear Barry Pia talking a lot about the nerves. So it is good that people know that chiropractic adjustments, they're really, concerned about the nervous system and how the nervous system affect the rest of the body. That through the spine, the big nerves, and then all the millions of nerves.
When you say that when you carry heavy load, you really should look up. In the olden days, our mothers were in the tarot patches, and in their tarot, they would carry this load of tarot on their head, and they would they always have to look up and have a straight spine, and then carry their load on their head always, but not looking
So they
down.
don't hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the problem we have is that if you look at most animals, they have their head out here, and we decided to stand up, and then we put our bowling ball on top of our little neck.
Our little spiny.
So we're literally got this bowling ball on top of our neck as we walk, and if you lose your curve in your neck, if you have your curve, you can live forever. As soon as you lose the curve, and that's what we find when these bones get out of alignment, the neck straightens out, and now the head is just pounding on the neck. So part of my work is to get the curve back in your spine, because that's what gets rid of the shock. There's no shock with a curve. So what happens is when you lose the curve, now the disc becomes shock absorbers. They're not supposed to be. With a curve, there's no shock. I can do that forever. As soon as I straighten my finger out, now I'm hurting my finger. So they should not be shock absorbers, not their job. When they become shock absorbers, that's when they start degenerating, and then all of a sudden you lose the holes for the nerves. So they go hand in hand there.
And then you probably also have found out that a lot of us islanders have fallen when we were a kid. We fall from a tree, or we slide and fall. And then sometimes we don't get things fixed. And then later on, after 40, then you start to feel, so is there still hope for people who have fallen and to get adjusted and kind of get a better posture and healthier?
You look at kids, boy, they do stuff, you go, they didn't break
They're
their
like
neck.
sponges, yes.
But they're, they've actually done damage. That's why I like to have kids in too. Because when I see kids, it's usually a few visits with kids because they haven't had time to get used to it. With adults, if they have a problem, they may have had it for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And now it's a habit of the body to be messed up. So I have to re-educate the spine and the other joints to start moving again. So, and that
So
can,
with young people, with kids, you will adjust right away so that they will not have that problem
It's
over
like
the years.
preventive.
Right, yeah. And with kids, maybe see them, once every few months, maybe a few adjustments in the beginning. With adults, I normally start them off with once a week. And because I have to retrain these joints to move again, especially if I get a 60-year-old in and they could have the problem for 50 years. You can actually start from birth, because if they pull on the neck sometimes, even with C-sections, they tend to pull on the neck.
Oh,
And that just can, the ligaments can stretch a good amount, but the nerves can't. So they actually do nerve damage. My buddy that had cerebral palsy, that came from a birth trauma.
Oh,
geez.
wow.
So a lot of cerebral palsy is from a birth trauma.
Have they tried to correct that in this modern days?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah.
They still pull like
you've
heck in
learned
there.
it's a lot of from the birth canal. I
trauma.
mean, because I know my son was pulled by a forceps.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah, because his head was pretty big and he
yeah,
had forceps dent.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's traumatic.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, yeah.
you
And I also adjust the cranium. I adjust the bones in the skull.
Oh,
Because they can show up, they got all these sutures in there, and if you bang your head, you can jam the bones together. And when you breathe, every bone in your body moves a certain way. So,
while you're breathing.
yeah, and that's why good breathing's good. I find a lot of people have a hiatal hernia, and that's when the stomach comes above the diaphragm, and they can get into a battle because now the stomach's stuck in the diaphragm. And number one, they can't breathe good, because if they try to breathe deep with the diaphragm, the stomach goes, "Stop it, you're bugging me." And that can cause indigestion, causes heartburn, because now the stomach and esophagus aren't separated properly.
Yeah.
And I
They're
can
mushed.
I just pull the stomach down when they blow out to get the stomach back where it belongs, and that will help a lot with digestion and also absorbing the food, because the stomach under stress like that is not going to be a good digestive organ.
Well, Dr. Manvel once told me about chiropractors believing in, birth in water. Can you share a little bit of that to avoid the trauma at birth?
Well, what happens, there's a book called Birth Without Violence by Dr. Le Boyer, a French obstetrician. And when he does the birth, it's dark, quiet, there's no machines going ding, ding, dang, dang, it's very quiet. Usually the only noise they hear is the mother going, "Is everything okay?" And they just have to calm the mother down. Then when the baby's born, they may let him go in the water. And actually, a baby will swim. We're natural swimmers at birth. Then what they'll do is they'll put the baby on the mother's chest so the baby can hear the heart, because the baby's used to hearing shh, shh from the heart.
Yeah.
And they may wait a half an hour before they cut the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is replacing the lungs, so the fetus is actually breathing amniotic fluid. So there's fluid in the lungs when the baby is born, and the baby has to get rid of the lungs. So he may wait a half an hour for that umbilical cord to die. That's when you know the lungs are working. We believe that
Before they cut the...
Yeah, we believe it, a lot of times they cut the cord too soon,
Yeah,
and they have to tie it off and cut it. When Le Boyer does it, when he just cuts the cord, there's no bleeding because the cord's dead. The lungs have taken over. But what we believe is that by cutting the cord, the baby's like, you've told the baby, "You better breathe now because we're cutting the cord." And we believe that leads to asthma.
Yeah, because they're inside the mother's womb. They're really in fluid, so
Yeah.
they're still adjusting, like swimming.
so the baby is, for the longest time, it's very traumatic for the baby to come out to this world with.
Well, yeah, then, they're
cord
actually
and the
blinded,
lights
a lot of
and-
them, by the lights.
And slap them to cry.
Because Le Boyer, what he found too was that the babies, with the dark, being in the dark, babies open their eyes right away. In a lot of births, the babies won't open their eyes for a week or so because they've been blinded by
bright
the lights.
So
So he has no lights on with there. Also, what's very strange is that he's found that most of his kids with the birth without violence, they're ambidextrous. And we believe that if you work on the right side of the body, that's the yang side or the male side. And that's the aggressive side. So if someone does deep tissue work on the right, people go, If you do on the left side, which is the yin side, the female side, people go, and it's more passive. So what he's found, he believes, is that most people are right-handed from an aggressive birth.
Oh, and do you
And the
think,
left-handed?
What's that?
What about the left-handed?
Well, the left-handed, well, they're still right brain. The only true left-handers is if the mother is left-handed too.
oh,
So, but yeah, so left-handed is just draw the luck. But again, they still have handedness. And with LeBoyer's work, they don't favor hand at all. They're ambidextrous, which surprised him. But then he realized, wow, that seems to be from birth trauma that makes most people handedness, either left or right. But most people are right-handed, and that's the aggressive side because of an aggressive birth.
so from birth, we already know how important our spine, our necks, our brain, and so if we have an aggressive, birth trauma, then the problems with our body actually start from birth.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
And then they do circumcision,
Yeah.
which that came from an 1870 doctor, MD, that didn't want boys to play with themselves. So he decided that they needed to do circumcision. So if someone came up to me right now and said, I'm going to circumcise you, I doubt if I would give approval. So I feel sorry for the babies. Just come to the new world and all of a sudden they go, by the way, we're going to cut your penis.
Maybe it's also biblical because,
The Jews.
the Jews were, commanded to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but the body is an interesting phenomenon. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a miracle. I mean, we started out as a sperm and an egg that you need a microscope to see. And then look at us now. We're over 1 trillion cells. So people ask me, can that heal? Well, and I've seen healing unbelievable. Because if we're the, if we're born from a, who's that? Is that me?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So,
So would you recommend, like, okay, if I go through my physical checkup at the Cortes Clinic, it'll be also better to visit a chiropractor?
Right, we do a totally different exam. So,
Okay.
it's on what floor is the chiropractic clinic? At
Chiropractic is
the,
open.
yeah,
at the
I'm on,
Corte
I'm on the
building.
second floor in the back there. I
Yeah,
have a
second
treatment
floor,
room.
where there's an eye clinic and then there's chiropractor clinic. You
Right.
walk
We need to
toward the
make an
back.
appointment on the first floor.
Yes.
Yeah, you can call the clinic there, 488-6655, and then they'll set up the appointment for you to see me.
488-6655 is the number to call. That's for those who do not know the new Cuarte building. Tirgal diakalo dengay tial ngar bitara tasigel mall, el 4-story el building. Yeah, sel sign el ngaringa PFMS. Kundas yung Pacific Family Medical
Palau.
Supply. Oh,
Pacific.
Pacific Family Medical Supply PFMS building.
Beautiful building, too.
Mal clean alsel, mal lungil alsel. Okay, Barry, I think I should just say a little Palawan. Pia ka dokora masaw tertegi tel chiropractic. Ngaringa kureng sa lokong mle atrabela ul atrabalilyo ngaya timle imol madu ul masuod. A chiropractic at yakalo suma masuod.
Adjust.
Adjust, oo. Kalblalo ay sang karuba ka awaseng hindi akalom kar tadi adjust raya tial iwsela at ospe cheka igel muscle saraat el momdengel waseng kang ra abiru ko ringira atial el tulul el molmuter iklel matial spine ra atial skeleton ra at el molmuter oil mang direkal ako raw ngil to ko rahel. It's also part of a healthy prevention and being healthy is to have regular chiropractic adjustments. And hangkaku loko tangalil atra 17 years ago al Clara Marigel al Napa Valley ngani nga atal til alakal malnes pito to alakal mongora miltamal latyal iklek al tila batatal bangya mang aknara toktang lo maska kakarula ring le direk al titiakal makngila x-ray sir nga kalmal mom sa Dr. Manvel. Ang mile cycle x-ray sir nga, emle once a week, lakmong 2 months, ang adjust sir nga kalmo, pak mo normal. Ang nga katpiyara kungil, menut el-al di rakatabal. Lutol ko raw, umaring ele. Hindi malo marar sa ikital regular once a month. Amerika la kukungi ringe kay kital to ko ra chiropractic, mamasa saro ko atra Amerika la umaram ta include ra insurance. Sa ikit.
Just have Ellen Morin through MSA rigide.
Can we patients use their MSA at the clinic for?
Yes, yeah, I
Okay.
think they're covered, yeah.
Oh, they're covered by MSA, my National Health Insurance.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with it. I'm just, that's the front desk, so
Yes,
that's Dr. Quante's thing.
And that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And this is part of the healing process.
Right.
Medicine.
You're an expert at what you do, and they help with the paper. So people should just call the clinic and make an appointment.
Yeah.
Sa gitil doloring ipian, so hindi ko ra Dr. Quartes Clinic, eruli appointment, tekuktal labom. Malbo to kar other belang kasi almera 2020 le 3 track medal 90 at medal 90 plus at ang his first day ang le 19 patients. Second day lang malbo to kar adam lamo matingel mo se hindi sabi MLD kukti mali makarlom ko atraring lang kiremel mo matigas sel was nga raw ulmong maring lasang
Malito ka pinch nerve.
pinch nerve okay atala kung dire kan mle pinch nerve lo paralyzed from the waist down. Okay, so I can explain a little bit in Palauan, and I know that you have to start working at 11. Oh, so maybe if you wanna, if there's anything else you wanna share to, you know, the people in Palau, that they watch this on TV and also on the internet, and so they like to know, you know, where they can find you at the clinic, and sometimes people think only people who do sports go to chiropractors or physiotherapist or physical therapist, but it's actually everyone has some sort of trauma to their body. So
Yeah, what people think, I'll like have them hold a leg up and they can't hold the leg up. And they think, oh, my leg is weak. But it's actually not weak, it's actually turned off. Because if the leg worked, it would bug the problem they're having. So I'll find some muscles are turned off because if they worked, they would actually annoy the problem they're having. So, for example, I have one patient, she'd come in like this, and normally you would think I'd want to beat this muscle up, it's in spasm. But actually the problem is the lower traps in the back isn't working. So I look at muscles for opposing. A lot of patients will have a certain problem and their abdominal muscles are turned off. Well, they'll complain about their low back being tight all the time because the opposing muscle, the abdominal muscles aren't working. So the back muscles go into spasm. We call that a tug of war. So I look at the body all the time where I see a tug of war. One muscle's in spasm and the other muscle's turned off. So my job is to balance the muscles out so the body can stay balanced. And a lot of times that's either nerve interference or can actually be associated with an organ problem. And they're finding now that the muscles are actually batteries for the certain organs. And if the muscle's sick, the organ gets sick too. For example, this muscle here is called serratus anticus, and that relates to the lung muscle. So if I get someone who's a smoker, they may have shoulder problems because this muscle is blowing out too, while they're also, you know, hurting the lungs smoking. Wow. So a lot of smokers, when I start treating them, they'll cough up a lot of stuff because the brain may not have known that they had all that stuff in their lungs.
yeah.
So that's part of the healing process, that people will have a lot of times more symptoms in the beginning, but they're going to get rid of a lot of luggage. And after they go through the healing, boy, they have a lot more energy and they feel much more better and they're enjoying life a lot more.
Yeah, so there's a clear message here. Was that the nervous, the brain, the nervous system, through the nerves, is communicating to all the other organs in the body.
And you were saying also that the best exercise is to move, to walk.
Yeah, I
Our
like
body
walking.
was not meant to be stationary.
Yes.
Well, they're finding out now that the best thing you can do to prevent Alzheimer's is walking, exercise.
Oh.
They used to think if you did puzzles and you kept your brain busy, but they're finding out that's not really helping. They're finding exercise is the best preventive for Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of things I do for that too that I recommend to prevent Alzheimer's. Because I'm 70 now, and I'm a little concerned about that. So I've been doing my protocol so I can prevent Alzheimer's. I want to keep my brain happy. So
He walks every day.
I like to take coconut oil every day. Coconut oil is the best thing you can do for your brain.
Oh. Eating it or?
Oh yeah, I cook with it and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So for the senior citizens now, all they do is when they go for their lunch program at the Senior Citizen Center, they play a lot of cards and hana huda, and
Yeah.
it's better if they just exercise.
Yeah,
Do a little
walking, dancing,
And well, just walking, just walk. That's your best
and eat
best
a lot of
exercise.
coconut oil.
Yeah, and the coconut oil is good, and also butter. Butter does not make you fat. What makes you fat is sugar and carbs.
Yeah.
That's what turns the fat. That also causes inflammation in the body.
Sugar.
Sugar and
wow.
carbs.
And
Carbs are
carbs.
just long sugars. That's just sugars. Okay. So and that's also it makes makes inflammation in the body. So and we've only had the sugar around for like 100 years. Before that, basically you had honey. That was about it.
Honey
And now they got sugar and everything. So, and our body, they think we went through periods of starvation. So we're one of the few mammals that if we eat any sugar, the body converts it very quickly into fat.
Oh, wow.
We're also the only animal that can burn fat and release ketones. And ketones are actually much better for your kidneys, heart, and brain. So if I have a patient that's overweight, I'm kind of jealous because they have a lot of fat to burn. And burning your fat is the healthiest thing you can do. It's much better than eating sugar and carbs. It's much better to burn your fat. So in fact, I've gained about 10 pounds lately, waiting, around for this.
Waiting for 6 months
So
to get a Palau medical
I'm going to
license.
eliminate all carbs and sugar for 3 days. And I'll want them. I'm going to crave them, but I'm going to cut them out. And by the way, there's tons to eat besides if you don't eat any carbs or sugar. You can eat vegetables. You can have some fruit. You can have mushrooms. You can have all sorts of stuff, meat. It's not that hard not to eat carbs and sugar. And after 3 days, I'll start burning fat. And when I know that, I can tell I sleep much better and I wake up running. I have my energy all day. When I eat sugar and carbs, we call it the roller coaster. And I'll have it, then I'll get tired, then I got to make sugar, then I get tired, and eventually that can lead to diabetes. Because your pancreas can get worn out making insulin. And insulin's job is to take the sugar in your blood and put it into the cells. So it's kind of like having a truck out there with food in it, but I'm still starving. That truck, the food's not helping me until it comes in the door. And that's what insulin does. Insulin takes the sugar in your blood and puts it into the cells. However, when we eat too much sugar, we make too much insulin released, and it knocks all the sugar out of your blood, and the brain depends on sugar in the blood. And the brain will starve. So I believe sugar is the major reason for depression.
Diabetes and depression.
Because when your brain is starving, it gets very depressed or upset or irritable and annoyed. And then you're going to crave the sugar again.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be happy for a while. But then what happens in your sleep, a lot of people need sugar in their sleep and they'll get insomnia and they'll wake up and they can't get back to sleep again. And I'll tell them just eat a little bit of maybe chocolate or something, dark chocolate, just so they can get back to sleep to keep their brain happy. And then I'll tell them we need to talk about that to see what kind of program we can get you on so you're not craving the sugar and the carbs.
Yeah, and I think depression can also lead to suicide. And in Palau, we've had a really big increase in the last couple of years or so. So everything we eat and our body getting adjusted, and it's part of prevention or
Yeah.
good health.
So part of what I also do is called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and that's how language affects the brain. So if someone comes in and says, I'm trying to lose weight, I'll say, I know you're very trying. I go, what do you mean by that? I go, then I'll say, how long have you been a loser? I go, what do you mean by that? If you lose your keys, what do you want to do?
You find
Them. So if you lose weight, you want to go find it again. So just like the same thing, tobacco companies know about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, how language affects the brain, because they tell you to quit. Well, the brain goes, I'm not a quitter, and you'll smoke more. So I don't want patients quitting anything. I don't want them losing anything. I want them to change their bodies. So I use certain language to help people change. And for example, the word pain makes you suffer. So if someone says, I have a lot of pain, they're going to suffer. And I use the word sensation instead. And sensation doesn't have that charge with it that pain does. Pain is bad, you suffer. Sensations you can play with. And they don't have that negative connotation to it that the pain does. So a lot of patients, I'll say, where's your sensation? And they'll say, it's in here. And then I find I can help them with pain a lot just by not using that word.
Lord,
neuro-linguistic programming.
Language affects the brain.
Tekoi. Yeah, and then the brain affects the nerves, and the nerves, the whole system. Yeah, so Perry, I know that some people, they went to Thorsten, so they only understand what Thorsten does, and so they need to know the difference. Physiotherapy is a German word for physical therapist. How different is that from chiropractor? Can you explain so people know the difference?
Well, for example, they may find a muscle that's not working, and their assumption will be, well, that muscle's weak. So I may have a patient try to do a sit-up, and I can push them down, and their abdominals aren't working. Well, we used to think in the beginning, this is in the 60s, we said, well, you got a weak stomach muscles, you need to do sit-ups. Well, we'd have the patient do a bunch of sit-ups and come back and it was still weak. We've learned now that it's been turned off for a reason. And so I'll find muscles that aren't working that I can turn on again by getting rid of the problem that's making it turn off. So the body will actually turn muscles off. They're not actually weak. They're turned off because if they did work, they'd annoy the problem they're having. For example, I have a patient lying on their back. I'll have them hold the leg up, and they can't hold the leg up. What I find is that the whole leg is jammed into their hip. And I actually adjust the leg out to get that problem out. Once I adjust it, the leg turns into a rock. I can't move it after that. But I find that on a lot of patients, and that also usually means they have an ankle sprain with that. So, and that can affect, just someone's ankle sprain can affect the whole body after a while, just from walking. Plus, when you have an ankle sprain, you can lose track of your feet, and that's when you can fall. And one fall can change your life. So.
Yeah,
definitely.
yes. So chiropractic is it's not therapy, it's adjustments of turning on and off the muscles. That's why he calls it applied kinesiology.
Applied kinesiology.
Applied kinesiology. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Well, we're really happy that Dr. Barry Manvel is here in Palau. And he's now become a local resident. He's a U.S. citizen, now a local resident in Palau. So we welcome him. And this is the first time that I asked him, please come so people will know who you are. You know, if you're a foreigner and you work in Palau and people don't really know who you are, sometimes they're shy to make an appointment, they're a bit weary. So now they know that you're made Palau your home, and we're very happy you're here. You are actually the very first chiropractor in the Republic of Palau. So this is an honor that we could, Pia and I could interview you, and people get to know you and where to find you.
Great.
Yeah, so thank you very.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being on the
Thank
show. Ako, okay. Ikaw malmasaw lulbang kamamra. DOTAUT. Magiguk malmasum ma next week.
Thank you.